Hello there everyone, welcome to this Around the World challenge where we will be playing as every team and winning the Constructor Championship. It's going to take, probably 10 more seasons, most likely more. And the idea here is very simple. We'll be playing as each team, we'll be winning the Constructor Championship. Once we win, we'll switch to another team, but we'll have a little bit of a twist. We'll not be starting with, say, Red Bull, the best ranked team. We'll be starting with Alfa Romeo. And once we've won with Alfa Romeo, which should take 2 seasons in all honesty, we'll be switching to whoever finished last on that second season, and we'll continue picking whoever's last of the teams that we haven't played with yet until we've won with every single one of them. Now, the reason why we're starting with Alfa Romeo is very simple. They have the worst team, the worst starting position, 10th in car performance, 9th in headquarters and staff performance, 6th in driver performance. So they are straight up the worst team to start with in the beginning. Now, I already have an Objective Survive series for Alfa Romeo, which kind of pertains to how you can develop and play throughout your first season in order to have some fairly good results. So for this series, and for this video, this first video of the series, we're going to be focusing on just development for the first year. It'll mainly be focusing on how we develop the car, how we do our research, our changes to staff, and generally just get set up for winning in Season 2. That is the idea here behind this first one. But from Season 2 and forwards, we'll be focusing more on races. Of course, if there is interesting moments, we are going to go ahead and, showcase a bit more of them. But as I said, we'll be focusing on mainly car development Season 1. This should work for any team. Alfa Romeo is the lowest ranked team, so it's a little bit easier to do it for them. And as I said, the goal here for this first season will just be to develop the car for the next one and then have, pull out a win then. I was considering taking the current Alfa Romeo save and, kind of repurposing it, but I felt like that would be, a bit too bad. So we're going to do the Around the World challenge with this save, and we'll be focusing on development for Season 1. Going to be very little race content, if any, for this first episode, which will take the entirety of Season 1 development and condense it into a video. So Alfa Romeo starting point is fairly simple now. It's been kind of fixed. We're now 8th or above, which shouldn't be a problem to satisfy with the board. We have a podium contender, long-term objective, board confidence is at medium, and generally our car isn't, the greatest. If we can actually have a look at that, and as you can see, the only thing we really have a bit of an advantage in over other cars is just medium speed and acceleration. Other than that, we don't really have any redeeming features. So the first thing we're going to do, of course, is get into car development. But before that, let's just see what we have with Bottas here. Bottas lacks smoothness, lacks adaptability, but it's pretty great otherwise. So he is a good driver to have on board. We are going to put him onto a development focus here that will actually help with that smoothness problem. And since he already has fairly high control, we're just going to put him on pace long runs. It's going to help a little bit with cornering and reactions, but hopefully we can get that smoothness up too. For show, he is also pretty fairly balanced here. He has a little bit lack of defending, a little bit lack of smoothness, but he has decent pace stats. He's fairly balanced, as you can see, lacking a little bit of cornering and braking. So for him too, we might put him on something that is smoothness and, speed stats. In this case, we could potentially just put him on pace long runs too, and I think that's fine. For Miguel Bassa here, we aren't actually going to be interacting much with him, so we'll not be making any changes. For our staff, we're not going to be making any changes into Season 1, except maybe switching out our sporting director. He doesn't have the best aptitude or processes. We might snatch one from AlphaTauri. And honestly, we aren't going to be here for long enough where development goals will make much of a difference for us, so we'll just keep all of our staff here balanced, except for maybe the crew manager. And again, we're going to be switching him out fairly soon. We can actually just go ahead and do that right now. Now, why do we want to switch him out? It's actually incredibly simple. The sporting director has a huge effect on your pit group, so we want a good one. Now, Marco Perrone here is a rather good option, mainly because he has fairly high aptitude and fairly high process to begin with. So we'd like to pick him up. So I'll just quickly get a contract going here. We'll put him in for 2 seasons. We'll give him a sinus bonus of, 50,000, pay him about $500,000. I think that should be enough to get him on board. Let's see how he feels about this. Not too happy with the money there, but honestly, we're just going to be here for 2 seasons, so it's not actually a big concern paying him a little bit extra. as I said, not really a problem. We're not going to really be developing facilities too much or anything like that. And as you can see that he accepted that, so we'll go ahead and hire him right away. And as you can see, aptitude at 89, processes at 91, and an 84 average. So the man is a pretty good choice here. Training stat is a little bit low, but again, the aptitude decides your skill ceiling. Processes define the fatigue gain. So either training or processes high is something that we want in him. And we're going to be putting him on industry standards to get that aptitude and the process stat even higher. Now, the main thing here that you probably want to see is the development of the car. And the main way you can, with a lower ranked team, have some performance in Season 1 and have results is by making specialized parts. What do I mean by this? It's actually incredibly simple. Every part has their own stats that they excel at, meaning that you want to maximize what the stats are good at. For instance, we have the side pods here and the chassis. Both have an engine cooling stat, but the side pods engine cooling stat is twice as effective basically as the engine's cooling stat of the chassis. So what we want to do here would be to, for that matter, would be to maximize cooling on our side pods and then maybe sacrifice some of the cooling ability on the chassis to get more, say, cornering ability or top speed, depending on what we're going for. Now, for the first year here, so to speak, what we'll be going for in our car is just getting the brake cooling, the engine cooling up, so we don't have to pay anything for extra parts, allowing us to do more development. And we also want to go for cornering so we can have some good results on, you know, corner intensive tracks. And that is going to be the main goal here. So to start off with then, we're going to be making 4 parts, mainly the cooling parts, which is the side pods chassis and suspension front wing. Now, the underfloor and the rear wing are important, don't get me wrong, but we are not going to be stressing this season. We're going to be taking it kind of slow and just developing our car as we go. So for the suspension here, the side pods, for the suspension here, sorry, not side pods, we might want to put in the CFD and wind tunnel time. We need to do one of the CFD and wind tunnel periods into a part, the first one that we're on right now, and the next ATR period is just in 14 days. So it's either that we put it into the suspension, which wouldn't actually give us that huge amount of gain, or we put it into the front wing, because those are the 4 that we'll be doing immediately. The underfloor is not a bad option either, because the underfloor is, effective on several levels, if you will. So what we might do instead is just put this ATR period into the underfloor, and that wouldn't actually be a bad shout here. As you can see, it would be a small upgrade, but we'll be having a bigger upgrade once this project is done. So we'll go ahead and do that. And for the underfloor, I know that I said I like to specialize, but for the underfloor, I mainly just keep it balanced. We can sacrifice top speed if we really want to, which honestly might be what we do here because top speed isn't a priority of ours. We could also sacrifice 38 cornering a little bit. It's not actually a concern either because, again, what we're looking at here is 38 tolerance. What we're looking at here is basically the cornering stats. So this is what we're going to do for our first underfloor. We can maximize this a little bit more to the right, but then we actually end up losing a lot of dirty air tolerance, end up losing a lot of top speed. So for this first one, we'll keep it in the middle because we already have very low dirty air tolerance, and we kind of need this stat. This stat basically is how easily you can follow another car without losing time. And if we aren't able to do that, of course, what's going to happen is that we aren't going to be able to overtake. But still, cornering is going to be important. Doesn't matter if we, can't overtake a car if we can't even get close to the back of it. So for now, we're going to focus on the cornering ability. We're going to be a little bit easy here on making this sort of underfloor. Doesn't matter where we place the sliders. Each of the 5 categories here are going to get the exact same amount of expertise gain. So there's not actually a concern. We're just going to make it normally. We don't have a lot of cash, so although I would like to do an intense first setup, particularly on the lower end pieces here, we don't really have the opportunity to do so right now. For the suspension here, it's a bit of a different story, because here we want to maximize 3 stats. This one was a mistake. We want to maximize our low speed cornering, we want to maximize our brake cooling, and as you can see here, this alone will give us a 10% increase, and we want to maximize airflow front. The reason why we want airflow front is because it acts on the low speed cornering here as more of a multiplier. So you want to have these 2 working in tandem. Same for airflow middle for the medium speed and, high speed cornering, kind of like that. So keep that in mind. If we were to say put this one all the way to the low end here, as you can see, we'd be regaining some top speed and some acceleration, but we would be gaining just half of basically the low speed gain here. We gain a little bit more brake cooling too, but honestly, this is how I would make my suspensions. So we're going to go ahead and do just that. For the next thing that we want to do is actually, as I said, the side pods. We want that secondary cooling ability of, well, the side pod. Side pod is your best bet for engine cooling. And we're going to kind of do the same thing that we did here for the suspension, except for go airflow middle. And the reason for that is incredibly simple again. If we have a look at the numbers here, particularly the cornering numbers, we get 0.67, 2807, and then we switch those around. We lose a little bit of high speed, we get a lot of low speed. Low speed is harder to come by than high speed. But at the same time, I don't feel like that is a sacrifice worth doing. So we'll be doing this and gain a little bit of everything. Gain 11% engine cooling here. Lose a lot of top speed, but again, it's a sacrifice that we're willing to do. We are at the bottom of the grid. We have to make kind of sacrifices that aren't necessarily optimal, but it is the best way to make some progress. Now, we have a difficult choice of what to develop next. It's either the front wing or the chassis. Chassis just takes 30 days though. So what I'm thinking here is that we get the front wing going. And as soon as this sidepod project is done, we can start with the chassis. But on the other hand, we can actually consider it from a different perspective. And that perspective is really, really simple. The fact that the chassis takes a long time to make. So what we're going to do here is actually make the chassis first due to that. And once again, with the chassis, we can do something a little bit simple. We can do something like this. We are going to lose 4% of engine cooling. But if you look at the gains here, particularly in the cornering department, those are huge. And the loss of engine cooling is going to hurt us a little bit, don't get me wrong. But it's going to be worth it. Now, we could also do, you know, speed this up, get even more engine cooling, or just make it kind of null itself out, which also isn't a bad idea. But we're going to be focusing on trying to get some points early here. So while I'd like to do this, I don't know if the sacrifice on the high-speed cornering is worth it. And as you can see, if we put this even more to the right like so, we lose even more top speed. So while we're going to be losing, you know, 4% of the 10% we're gaining from the side pods by doing this, it is a sacrifice I'm willing to make in order to, you know, get a lot more performance out of the piece. So we'll go with that. Now, a different thing that I want to talk to you about before we get going is lifespan. So lifespan has been changed with the 1.6 and 1.7. Now some pieces have less, some pieces have more. But generally, putting this to the left still seems to be the best idea, and that is what we'll be doing. You'll be spending a little bit more on parts because, well, they'll fail more often. But you'll also have, particularly in your first season, with low brake cooling, with low engine cooling, dirty air tolerance being bad, basically things that will make your tires and brakes heat up, you'll end up in a situation where you'll have a lot of incidents. And if you have a lot of incidents, it doesn't matter if your you know, lifespan is 100 years, if they're going to crash after one race. So we're going to be minimizing lifespans. For most parts, the only exception might be the front wings, because they can go down to just a single race lifespan at the minimum levels. But we'll have a look at that a little bit later. Now that is the development here getting going. We welcome Marco Perone the first day. We basically got most of the stuff that we wanted done now. Now we will have to set up our pit crew, but I have a video on that on my channel. You can have a look at that. Basically, we'll be working at maximizing the pit crew speeds, because in the first season, all we really care about is preparing for the second season. And by winning the pit crew championship, by having the quickest pit stops over the course of a season, we get an additional 12 million, which will help us out at the start of next year. Now we do have 11.7 million left over here. And what we're going to do with that is actually go ahead and upgrade your factory. Particularly as Alfa Romeo, you start with a pretty lousy factory here with just 2 slots capacity, meaning that we can only manufacture 2 parts at once. And that is going to make it very, very difficult for you to get anything done, unless you rush or emergency manufacture, which is incredibly expensive. So the first thing we're going to invest in here is that factory, get it up there. And we're not going to actually bother with the staff facilities for the most part. We're going to wait a little bit longer before we invest anything into these, because right now we don't need them. We could go for the helipad. Helipad is usually a good investment. And honestly, I think we'll just go ahead and get that built. Shouldn't be an issue. And with that, we have basically the first thing set up now. We have the 4 first developments. We have changed that 1 staff member. If we really wanted to min-max here, we could also replace Guan Yu Shou here, pretty simply. But again, we are going to probably replace him next year, because again, we are min-maxing here. We're going to be trying to doing this in the shortest time possible. Winning a season 1 with Alfa Romeo would be pretty damn impressive. I managed a 4th place in my other series, but if we really wanted to, we could switch him out with, say, well, I say Alonso, but apparently he's not interested. So, yeah, can't actually switch him out with anyone in this stage. You could with Alonso, I believe, in earlier patches, but right now, none of them are interested. So, I guess we'll be looking at a new driver next year, which is fine. With that in mind, though, we'll be heading into the first few races, and I'll be back once some of our upgrades are done. For the picker ascent, we'll be focusing on the gym, getting that pace of time down. And we'll be making sure that on Thursdays here that we have about 10%, so that we can be very sure now that we don't hit above 50%. These numbers seem to be not completely, trustworthy at the moment because of the newest patch. They did change how pit crew works, with degradation between seasons being higher. Seems like fatigue gain has been kind of increased too, but it's not really reflected in the calendar. So keep that in mind. I'd say don't go over 10% on race week and Thursday, and you will usually be okay. And that is what we've done here. We've also gotten the second level of the helipad underway. Will actually be done on the Saturday for the race weekend. But right now, what we will be doing is jumping into the first race of the season. We still will probably have to wait a bit until we get some upgrades, developed here. Gonna take 20 more days for the chassis, 24 more days for this side pods. And with that in mind, as you can see, the first upgrade, the chassis, isn't going to be available before Australia. So we'll be skipping through the first 2 races here fairly quick because we can't really do anything with them. We don't really have a car to, challenge with. And we'll be looking forward to seeing what we can do going into Baku, because that is when we'll have some of the more, upgraded parts. And as you can see, a research will also be opening then. So we're probably just going to make one set of each part, and with the exception of the underfloor, which we put safety time into. And then we're going to just full on research into next year. So we'll see exactly how that develops. But season is starting. And as I said, if we have any surprising results, I'll be showing you. If we're out of the points, I'll probably be skipping it and just giving you a summary of how the races have gone between upgrades. Let's get into it and see if we can, have a good first season here. Our first design is complete here, the chassis, which we will go to manufacture here virtually immediately. But as I said, it takes time, 10 days here now for a chassis to be made. Now we don't actually care about our results during this first season, so we're just gonna make these 2 chassis in a bit of a normal manner. Although because of the fact that we have very lacking development, because we only have 2 manufacturing slots, it takes 10 days to make one. We're gonna go ahead here and just make one for the time being, because we're gonna have some, upgrades for the 4 other slots that we're designing. And we're going to be making just that one and give to Bottas. That's going to be the goal here. Now, what we could do, if we want to be really cheeky about it, is make another one in this second slot. But as you can see, we aren't actually allowed to do that, so we can't be cheeky. That's just me being silly. But that would have been a cheeky thing that we could do. But it's just 5 days now until we get that next design in the side pods. So what we're going to go ahead and do here is actually start that from wing design. We have CFD and mile hours here, or wind tunnel hours and CFD. But we want to use that for research rather than for anything this season. Honestly, if we can finish 8th, which is the board's objective, that would actually be the best for us in terms of getting the next season off to a good start, because then our safety periods will be a little bit more powerful. And that could help us out with, getting the championship win in the second season. But I'm not actually concerned at the current stage. We'll still just do things as we have been doing. We'll have a look at it and see when the research, the research and regulation changes, what actually gets reduced. Now for your front wing, it should be pretty much straightforward what you want to, focus on. We don't care much about airflow sensitivity. We should actually care a little bit about airflow sensitivity. What we do care about though is the low speed downforce. Mainly, we do lose a lot of dirty air tolerance if we do it like this. So what we're going to be doing instead is actually just taking a little bit of a loss everywhere else to keep the low speed, the dirty air tolerance where it is. Because if we don't, this is going to hurt a lot. Now, brake cooling here, we can actually sacrifice. We can go ahead and sacrifice some of that brake cooling if we really want to. But I think we'll keep it at a bit of a lower level. Keep this one, kind of where it is. Again, we could tune it all the way down, sacrifice the brake cooling, but I think it isn't worth what we would be gaining. So this is what we'll be going for. We'll be getting 10% brake cooling from the suspension after all, and that will bring us up to about 45%. It's not great, but it's acceptable for our first season. So this is what we're going for with the front wing. Again, it's not a massively, great front wing. We could increase the durability slightly, like so. It would actually probably help a little bit to just add a little bit more lifespan to it in terms of our monetary situation. So we're just going to go 2 clicks to the right. It's going to lose us a little bit of performance, but I think it's going to be worth it with making sure that they'll at least survive 2 races for sure now. So that is what we'll be going for. And yeah, usually I'd go brake cooling all the way to the bottom, but because of the fact that we're lacking so much brake cooling, because we're lacking so much dead air tolerance, we have to make compromises with these two this time around. So we'll just make this one normal again. We don't actually have any stress now during the first season. We can do things as we go. And if you get sponsored VIP experience, particularly in our current situation, it is a bit risky, but Bottas has finished both the races in the top 15. So we'll be going for something like that for Australia as well. Although the other teams might have some new parts, which could make that a little bit harder there. We'll see. Now, because we are been upgrading our helipad now, it's at level 4. We're going to go ahead and max that. We still have a little bit of money. The extra payout over the course of these 2 seasons will be helpful to us, so that is why we're doing so. And we'll go ahead and manufacture this side pod immediately like we did the other one. And we won't have them ready for the Australia, but we should have basically a new car for Bottas ready before Baku. And of course, we're going to go ahead and make a new rear wing. Now, the rear wing is going to be where you regain most of your, losses in terms of top speed. We're going to be sacrificing a little bit dirty air tolerance here potentially, but I think we're going to have to do it like this. As you can see, DRS effectiveness, the top speed is generally what you want to focus on. But because of the situation that we find ourselves in, I have to put in a little bit of airflow sensitivity so we don't, turn into a brick behind other cars. But the DRS effectiveness here, the top speed regain, is going to help us with the overtakes. Could potentially still keep the dirty air tolerance at a minimum. But again, it's one of those stats that the lower they get, the more of an impact they have. So we'd like to keep that, if not where it is right now, probably try and get it up a little bit as we go as well. So this might be all the parts that we'll be making over the course of the season, with the expansion of, well, we might make another underfloor, we might make another suspension. Because of the fact that the research hasn't actually opened yet. It's still going to be, as you can see here, a little bit longer. We need to go to April here. We'll have it before Baku, so we'll have to see what we do. Probably, as I said, do 2 more design projects here for probably redesign the suspension, probably redesign the underfloor, and that's going to be all the parts that we make. And then we'll go ahead and start the research process. So we do have a plan. The only question though is that we have an ATR period 3 begins here. So we might leave this one, this slot here for the suspension open. And the reason for that is that we need to use the ATR period that we currently have. I'd like to use it in research, but because our projects aren't going to be done until, as you can see here, Miami and midweek here, into the next ATR period, we need to keep one of those slots available to us so that we can actually do a project. So we might actually just do 1 underfloor, and that should be enough. We're going to put 1 car in the top 15. We're going to be going for 1 car reaching Q2. Bottas is going to be, the gamble here. It's a bit of a gamble financially because he is by no means guaranteed to get into Q2, but we'll do the best that we can. So yeah, that is the development so far. We have had a couple of good races where Bottas has been top 15. We'll see if we can continue this for the rest of the season and, snatch a few points. The suspension design has finished here, as I said. We don't actually have, well, we did there. We just gained a manufacturing slot for it, so we'll go ahead and make 1 again. We'll be juggling these manufacturing slots to, get the cars ready for Baku. Hopefully, that is. And we'll be dealing with that. We have, tipped the first month here. We haven't actually scored any points. We've had, top 15 finishes for all 3 races, so can be happy with that. A little bit of leveling up here for show. Good. Cornering and reactions. The board confidence is medium. Honestly, we haven't scored points, so that's understandable. Design here is done for the suspension. Chassis manufactured. Car development report. We'll have a look at this once we get to Baku and see where we're at after the first, set of parts. But generally, we aren't too fussed. We have lost the front wing. We've had no real incidents, but as you can see, because of a low engine cooling, even after just 3 races here, we've lost 40% on one engine and 30% on the ERSs, 45% on the gearboxes. So it's still taking its toll. We do need to get that up fairly quickly. We're also going to be setting up a training schedule, but I am going to be leaving this design slot open because we'll be going to research very soon. And as you can see here, we actually have the underfloor design ready in just a day. So we'll quickly set up the pit schedule. Again, it's going to be a pit stop time schedule for the most part. And the goal here is, of course, going to be very simply to set up a schedule where we aren't weary come Baku. And we've made, you know, some inroads into our pit stop times. And we're tired here, so we'll be switching, you know, the car building ones over to gym training. And that should be all right. We'll probably be resting for these two, I would think, because the team is already very tired. 2% here, that's fine. Can just as well do 1 rest, 1 gym training, and then they'll rest until the race itself, and that's fine. We can actually slot in 1 more gym training here. So the error chances here are going up, but the stop time is going down, which is kind of what we like to see early game. And we're 4% more rested. I'm happy with this schedule. Now, we are going to have a design complete for the underfloor, and we're going to have the manufacture of the side pod completed at the same time, which means that because we put the, you know, the CFD time into said underfloor, we're going to be making one, of course, because we're going to need one for the race weekend anyways. And we're going to go ahead here and start another project right away. If we have a look now on the warehouse here, let's have a look at that underfloor. It gives us 29, 37, 62 in the stats that we care about. 29, 37, 62. If we were to design a new one right away, a new underfloor without CFD time, let's see just how much of an improvement that would be. So as you can see here already, it's a huge improvement to one that we currently have. And we can keep things as they are if we want to. We can switch things around a little bit. But generally, I like to use my underfloor as a bit of a base. Might even do something like this and get a little bit of that dirty air tolerance up. But I think we're going to be making an underfloor like this. It won't be great, but it'll still be a huge upgrade because remember, 29, 37, I think it was 62. So as you can see, after you do a CFD wind tunnel time, you do need to make another version of that piece because it'll have massive upgrades all across the board. And that is what we're going to be doing here now. We're just going to be designing it normally to get the most out of our money. And as I said, I'll be keeping that 1 slot open for when we get that regulation change come, you know, just a couple of weeks out here now. And we're still waiting for the facility upgrade of the factory. So we're still limited on our production until we're done with Miami, which of course is slowing us down quite significantly here. Helipad has reached its max level, meaning that we get 5% extra payouts from sponsorships. That is actually pretty huge. So that is going to help us financially as well. Regulation modes for minor technical changes, either high speed or low speed downforce changes. Honestly, we're going to vote for the high speed ones because the low speed ones are more difficult to race, honestly. So let's go ahead with that one and we'll see what they have chosen in a week's time. So the suspension has been manufactured. Honestly, I'm thinking we manufacture another one because it has a lot of low speed cone ring. It's what we're going to need for Baku. We have time to make one more for Baku. And we're probably going to be able to make either an underfloor or a, what's it called? A side pod for car number 2. So we're going to go ahead and manufacture one more underfloor as well. And that is basically what we'll have time for now to prep for Baku. Probably that and a, as I said, a side pod. Skip sponsor obligation. We're going to deny it. And honestly, I need the money here. And that's fine. Although I believe that is one that I probably should have skipped because that I think is a control obligation. We'll have a look at it. Research period starts now. And research period is now open. Regulation mode for minor changes. Let's see here what we got. We got what we wanted for, high speed, so we are perfectly happy with that. And with that in mind, we are going to be starting research here now. And I think the first research period here now, we're just going to put it into the suspension. We'll be putting research into every single one of our parts, a CFD period, because we have 5 periods left this year. So we'll be putting it into everything but the chassis, I think. That should be a fairly balanced way of doing things. And again, these are stats that we'll be getting next year. But already you can see that just this one research is going to be a massive improvement. And because of the way that sliders work right now, there's no need for us to, you know, specialize. We'll just have to take it as it is. And we'll go ahead and confirm this research. Next up is going to be the manufacturing of the suspension. And what we want to do then is, as I said, make another sideboard. We should have just about enough time, and we do. We don't really have enough time to make another chassis, but that is okay. It's not a big deal. What we are going to do now, though, is to make a chassis for the race after this one, which is what we'll go ahead and do. Of course, if I rush it, I can get it done in time, but particularly with the fact that we start with so low cooling, we are probably going to have to buy another engine for both cars by the end of the season. We're going to have to probably buy at least one more ERS, maybe one more gearbox. So we do need a little bit of flexibility there in our financial situation, so to speak, on how we want to deal with things. We'll make another sideboard. We'll make another, you know, suspension. The only thing that we'll be, you know, making an extra out here is just the underfloor, the front wing, and the rear wing. And then we'll keep those parts till the end of the season. We're here now in Baku. We can put our car together, if you will, and we're going to go ahead and do exactly that. Now, Bottas' car is going to be the one that we will be focusing on, so we'll be putting all the parts that we have made, which is everything but the wings really, onto his car mainly, and we'll have a look at where we stack up now compared to our opponents, or rather competition. Again, the front wing, we'll replace this later, but I do want to replace the one that has failed, so we'll do it like that. And if we have a look now on our car versus everyone else's, this is Bottas' car. He has the chassis that the show does not. We have a small upgrade here. It's not a massive upgrade, don't get me wrong, but we have moved one place up in medium speed. We've moved 2 places up in low, 2 places up in high speed. We're better on engine cooling now. We're still lacking, you know, DRS effectiveness, top speed. We're definitely lost because we sacrificed it. But at the same time, the cornering ability is going to be big, and the reason for that is having good cornering ability allows you to pull away from cars before the DRS zone, and that is what we're kind of banking on here. We're still going to go with a 3 streak of 15 places before we you know, make anything more grandiose. We're still going to say that we're going to be finishing 15th here, and we're still going to be saying that we'll qualify 15th. It's going to be what we'll be going for until we can reliably hit high goals, and that should be perfectly okay. With that said, let's jump into Baku. We are going to, again, just progress as we are. And if we have any good results, I'll let you know. As you can see, we have finished 9th here with the upgrades. Show's still down in 17th, but
we are P9.
That is unfortunately how it goes. He still has a little bit to go on. I focused on Bottas. But as you can see here, with just a few upgrades in this case, 4 out of 6, Bottas is already, well, 4 out of 7 if we're serious. Bottas is already potentially able to fight for points. This was a sprint, which means that we're not getting any points here. But we'll see how this goes for the race itself. It is potentially at points in Baku with Alfa Romeo in a more of a relaxed setup, because we could have rushed some of the projects. We could have gotten some parts quicker. But we've been taking it kind of, you know, slow here and mainly focusing on getting ready for Season 2. With that said, though, we'll see how it goes in Baku here if we score points, because as you can see here, we have a chance now to start fighting probably with Bottas mainly, not with Show. Bottas has, you know, 7 overall more. He has more pace skills, which means that he is actually probably better than the 87 overall would suggest. So we'll see if we can score some points here with him. So we have a great chance here of scoring points, and then we have a red flag right before the end. As you can see, lap 48 out of 51. We are currently running 8th. We are 8 seconds ahead of Ocon. Well, 15 seconds ahead of Gasly. Show is still running good. I have no idea what actually has happened here. It looks like Stroll has, you know, had a bit of an incident here. He is kind of beached, middle of the corner. Understandable red flag. Alonso crashed out a bit earlier. Couldn't really take advantage of that.
Let's take a closer look.
Now,
by the looks of things, we're at turn 15 now.
Is this with the Merc? Oh no, he did it on his own. But yeah, that does boost us 1 place, but this is not great for us by any means of the imagination. And the reason why is fairly simple. It's a restart. It's a restart. It's going to be a drag race for 2 laps. It's, as I said, not great for us. I'd rather have the 7-second lead rather than having to deal with this restart on the red flag. Oh,
away we go.
That's a very interesting restart right there. Holy shit.
The race continues.
Guess it was because it was 16x somehow. That is the quickest restart in the history, but luckily we're still safe, although I didn't get to, you know, set in the parameters here. We do run low and rarely defend, just so that we don't, you know, wreck our cars. There's no need for us to take risks unless we really have to. And yeah, that was an interesting bug that broke my headphones. But at least Bottas did manage to hold on to his position on the restart now. It's going to be 2 laps where we're going to be trying to score our first points. But yeah, that was a very, very interesting red flag moment for sure. Last lap now. Honestly, I don't think we're going to have anything changing back and forth here. We do have now damage to the engines for both cars. Basically just wear and tear, which is not surprising with the fact that, you know, we are running lower end cars. Now, Bottas has lost DRS, which is going to make, well, not that we had any to begin with.
Over the line.
But so he did manage to hold up. We finished 7th. We would have finished 9th without the Astons crashing out. So we are already by Baku with just 4 upgrades in the fight for points. And with Bottas, particularly, the reason why Bottas usually will be finishing a lot higher than Show is A, I give him more attention. I pay more attention to him because he's getting the points. But because he's also a much better qualifier because of his higher driver stats, he'll usually be starting ahead of, you know, cars like Tsunoda, Norris. He'll be starting either behind the Haas's or between them or close to the Alpines. And as such, he isn't losing a lot of time in the race trying to fight the Vries, Piastri, Sargent, Albon, and he has an easier time on the pit stops too. That is why he'll generally be doing a lot better work than a Show in this playthrough or this first season. So that is the first points here in Baku. Pretty straightforward. 6 points there. We'll take that. Puts us into 6th place in the Constructors. And as I said, I would actually hope for getting 8 here. So we have 3 more upgrades to go on. What I mean by that is we have a front wing, we have a rear wing, and then we have the second underfloor. Once we get those, we're just going to be doing research. And with that in mind, I don't think we'll be seeing any huge gains here. We'll have an outgoing now because, well, Bottas ended up in the points. And we get a little bit from our qualifying and finish positions, which were 15 or above, which both drivers managed, although we just put in 1. So already now by Baku first season, we are in a position where we can start scoring a bit of points, which is what we like to see. We're going to go ahead here and manufacture. Actually, I want to see what's broken first before we decide what to manufacture here. We also apparently tip months, so we have a little bit of an update here to go on. Bottas gets a reaction point. Show gets cornering and reactions. We'll take that. Board has medium confidence in us. I would assume that will go up a little bit higher. And we have a failed front wing, so nothing major really. We also have a new ATR period. The last one we put into the suspension. This one we'll just put into, you know, the underfloor, maybe. Probably, yeah, we're going to be putting the research into the underfloor, just so we kind of work our way up. I think side pods is above though, so we'll probably do side pods instead. I know, I'm a little bit all over the place. But we'll just go ahead and replace this front wing. We'll go into the warehouse and have a bit of a look at where we're at in parts. We can install the chassis now on both cars. Front wings, we're going to be getting new ones. Rear wings, we're going to be getting new ones. Suspension, I think we'll manufacture a suspension here. They're usually the things that take damage first. So with the manufacturing capabilities that we have to be kind of mindful of what we make and when. So we'll do that. For the pit crew here, we're once again going to be doing a, you know, pit stop time month. We're going to be getting rid of, you know, anything else here. Putting in a little bit of rest. I'm a bit unsure if there's immediately a race after Monaco, but with a triple, you know, 3 races over the course of a weekend, they're going to be tired anyway, so we can take a little bit of a break here. That's not a concern. As you can see, they'll be weary for both of these, so get rid of this, get rid of this. And even then, we are kind of in the danger zone, but I think that's acceptable. It is acceptable here for Miami as well. We're actually going to put in a couple of gym sessions here, but that actually puts us into weary territory later in the month. So we'll go ahead and put in our rest day here, and that should be acceptable. So we'll not be getting too much out of this month here. As you can see, just half a tenth down on the estimated pit stop time, but with 3 race weekends, that is fully understandable. Now with that said, we are going to be going into Miami. We're not going to be getting any new parts before that. Cypher manufacturing has been completed though, meaning that we now have 3 of those. The underfloor, we're not going to be manufacturing more of these because we're making a new one. But I think we'll start a chassis manufacturing project then, and that should be okay. We'll also be, I believe, during this race, we can be getting that upgrade to the factory. So once this front wing design is done, we can just snap it into that new factory upgrade. And we'll have the chassis complete here. We'll have the suspension complete here. So both the front wings and the rear wings should be done for Emilia Romagna, no problem. And the final underfloor will be done in time for Monaco. So come Monaco, we should have all 7 upgrades that we'll be going with this season on our car. And after the 17th of May here, we'll just be doing research till the end of the season to, you know, prep us for next season, which is the goal behind this this episode. Now, fastest lap is not something we'll be going for. Q2 with 1 car should be doable. Q3, I still feel like that is a bit, you know, too much of a gamble, so we'll be a little bit more passive on that end. But these engines, we'll probably be using them here in Miami too, and then we'll be switching them out afterwards. The gearboxes will be switched out here. As you can see, they're at 40%. They're about to start taking damage, and you can really see that over the first 4 races here that our car has taken a lot of punishment. So we'll be switching these parts out going forwards, but with the, as I said, with the new changes here, with the new pieces here, brake cooling, engine cooling is now up to 45% for both cars. I'd really like to get this a little bit higher, but I think it's something we'll just have to live with for the season. Still, we have a little bit of cornering advantage, but as you can see here with Bottas, even with this disadvantage in cornering, it's able to put the car in the points because of driver skill. So driver skill and aggressive attack strategies, they are really, really powerful. You can, of course, choose to not use them, but they will make your life a lot simpler for this game. With that said, though, we'll be focusing on the next races, and we'll see where we're at in terms of development then. Miami here too has been a good race. As you can see, we're currently running in 7th and 11th. We'll have to see if Show here actually has anything to give, and if he can get himself into the points ahead of Hamilton. So currently Bottas is beating Russell. He is kind of catching up to Sainz. We did use our entire battery. Bit unfortunate that we didn't have a little bit more time here, particularly here with Show as well. He is trying to, he is kind of considering making the move, I think.
Okay, Valtteri, that's it.
But unfortunately, I don't think we have anything to get this done. So
Well done. Good job.
bit unfortunate there for Show.
And once again, good job.
But if you take this in consideration, we have 4 upgrades on the car, and we're already reliably getting Bottas in the points, reliably getting Show into a fight for the points. Well, not reliably, somewhat getting him into a fight for points. And we still have, as I said, 3 upgrades to come our way. Now, in terms of quality, we also didn't do too bad. As you see, Bottas made up 2 places in the race, qualified 9th, and Shohei qualified 12th. So with that in mind, we do have a fairly good result here, I feel. Again, Bottas isn't actually too far behind Sainz either to fight for that 6th place. And as I said, Shohei almost got Hamilton for that last point. With that said, though, we will be continuing, again, going back to a car development focus. Probably not going to be updating too much in terms of the races here because they honestly aren't important for the first season. I understand they might be very interesting to watch, but these races are not 100% focused from my side. If you want to see 100% focused races from my side, go and watch the Objective Survive with Alfa Romeo, the same save game basically. Well, the same team. We're basically just trying to power through this first season with the main focus on car development so we can win next season and then jump ship to a different team. Because again, this is an around the world challenge. I could have adopted it from the Objective Survive, playthrough that I did with Alfa Romeo, but I felt like it deserved its own little, start. So we'll be doing the first season now with the main focus on research, unless of course we snatch a unlikely podium or something like that. The front wing design has completed, which means that we are getting closer to a complete car. We do want to manufacture that. The factory 2 has been, finished, if you will. And we are going to go ahead and do just 2 front wings for now. That should be good enough for the time being. We'll have a suspension done in a day. But as I said, the facility here, the factory now has been upgraded to level 2. I really would like to upgrade it once more to level 4. because that will give us even more freedom on, developing parts. We don't really need to do this now, because as we know, we're not going to be making too many more parts this season, but we'll try and get this done so that we have level 4 at the start of the next season, because that, well, not level 4, level 3, and for project at the start next season, because that'll make the, early development a lot easier. Now, the factory upgrade, the front wing design, we do have some failed rear wings, which isn't a problem. We're going to have some new ones by Emilia Romagna anyways, so it's not actually a concern of ours. And we are going to go ahead here and start a side pod research. The underfloor is actually the first one there in turn, so we'll not be using 60 hours on that just yet. We'll have to see though exactly what is the best option, but for now we'll do a research project as is on the side pods, and I think that is fine. Next up, that rear wing design completed, and we also have the suspension manufacture completed too, which means that we can go right ahead and manufacture a couple of new rear wings. We'll just make 3. That way we have a little bit to go on for the start of next race, and we're going to just go ahead and start another research. Do a rear wing research. It's not actually, a bad thing, so we'll get that going as well. With that said, we should have... This one is actually really good, a design center improvement event. This is perfectly timed for us. The design center effectiveness plus 50% for 45 days. What this actually means though is that we get 2 extra projects, we get some extra engineers, and we get extra, effectiveness for 45 days. Basically in terms of if we weren't making designs. Now, the main thing that we'll be taking away from this is that extra project capacity. We're going to approve the budget for this. It's perfectly fine. It is a very good investment, but keep in mind that to get the 2 extra project capacity, you need to have your condition be within this final square. And if this final square, basically above 75%, drops into this one over here, the third square, or the second best square, you'll be losing those 2 extra projects. So this is again perfectly timed for us. It allows us to do a little bit of extra stuff, and we might hire just more engineers here. Not going to cost us really anything. It'll give us the flexibility for the project, because we do have 45 days now. We want to try and get as much out of that as we can. So we'll be starting a front wing project here with just 1 engineer. And the main reason why that is because it'll be done in 41 days. But as long as we start a project before we lose that extra slot, we'll still retain it. But I think I from a different, we'll do it like that. It should be fine. We'll get a little bit of boost here, but that's the thing. We'll lose those 2 slots, but as soon as projects are done after those 2 slots are gone, we'll basically not have them no more, which is the thing. So we'll do this with the front wing, which means that we'll again be able to start 2 slots. We basically have the rear wing and the front wing, 40 days, which means that we don't really need to stress with anything else. We'll just do a normal chassis project, maybe speed this up a little bit, put engineers on it. Because again, we do want to try and get as many projects done within these 45 days as we can. Putting more engineers on it means that we'll be getting less expertise, but we'll get more daily expertise, but less total. But it'll allow us to put in 3 projects here within this extra window. So it'll cost a little bit extra money, but we'll do that. Should be fine. Shouldn't be a problem at all. And next up now will be that underfloor design. Manufacture of the front wing has been completed, and we're just going to go ahead and make 2 more because we aren't going to be making, any other types of front wings, so we want to try and get that number up to 6, so we are kind of safe, if you will. Chassis manufacture has also been completed. We're going to go ahead and just make 1 more. We are getting to the point now where we are kind of, keeping up on the parts, which is good. Underfloor design complete. We do need to make this new design, which is probably why I should have kept some manufacturing capabilities open, but even then, we're not getting that before this race anyways. We'll be trying to get that before Monaco. So let's have a look here on where we're at in manufacturing. We'll have a slot in a day, so not a big concern. And we are going to now do the research for that underfloor, which full CFD and wind tunnel time should be a fairly sizable upgrade for next season. And as you can see here, this is pretty sizable already in terms of next season upgrades. So we'll go ahead and take this and invest in it. And we'll just do it with 1 engineer, and that's okay. Could put in 2 here, but as I said, we we'll be using the rear wing and the front wing here as kind of our guiding poles on when we should be done with the projects. And we'll be trying to get as many chassis done. Could probably do the same way with suspension, honestly. See if we can get a couple of extra suspension projects through. And that is going to be it, I think, for our project distribution. Now, we have some failed parts here. Basically, those rear wings. We'll be switching them out come race day in 2 days. But I'm not too concerned about that. We're going to go ahead here and manufacture a underfloor, or just start 2 of them right away. And as you can see, this is a fairly sizable upgrade to the one that we currently have, mainly due to, well, the boost from using CFD in tunnel time. With that, we are at the practice session. This is when the AI would update their cars, so we're going to go ahead and do the same. We're going to install those new rear wings. We're going to install these new front wings. And with that, I believe we have now all upgrades except for this underfloor on our car. And if we compare our car now currently to the AI, you see that we've made some pretty significant strides here. We're now 11 in the DRS effectiveness, with 10 to low speed, 11 medium, lacking a little bit still in that high speed department, but honestly, not a huge concern here. We're getting very close now to being a top of the midfield car, lacking top speed, of course, but again, cornering ability is what we mainly focus on. So right now, looking very, very promising. We'll probably be scoring more points going forwards. And with that, let's jump into Italy and see how we do in the near future. Interestingly enough here, with the upgrades that we currently have, we still have one lacking, that second underfloor that we made. But we have one upgrade for every single of the 6 parts. And currently, we have had both cars now into Q3 with a little bit of help, let's be honest here. We had Russell out in Q1 somehow. We had Stroll out in Q2. So theoretically here, we probably should have been just outside of, just aside of Q3 here, but we got both cars in. We still have that underfloor, which means that at least for the first half of the season, we're going to be somewhat competitive and be scoring some points. But again, I just want to show this because it is not too difficult with Alfa Romeo within that first season, with just the first few updates, to at least be in the points, as long as you're running rather aggressive strategies. Again, this is just qualifying. We're probably going to improve during the race itself, but again, it's just to show the viability. Once again, a good result from aggressive strategy. We did have rain halfway through. One stopper here. Show had a bit of a spin, a lockup. Luckily, no damage, but it did put him further down than he should have been. Probably would have been fighting Ocon here for 9th potentially if it weren't for that. But it is what sometimes happens. Can't really deal with it. We'll just have to live with it. And that is how things, well, went. Pistol wise, we're getting better. Show here with a good one. Unfortunately for Bottas, he did have a bad pit stop. Didn't really change where he ended up though, so no big issue there. But again, this just proves that with just minor updates, you are, with Bottas at the very least, more than capable of fighting for points. Currently, we are, I believe, 6th in the championship, 40 points behind Merc. And if we can keep this up with the next upgrade as well, we could potentially start fighting for 4th again. But we are where we want to be, honestly, so we're just going to do that one upgrade and then we'll be doing full research because we want as much CFD time next year as possible. Have a couple of failed components here, but that's not actually a surprise or a problem. We'll just replace them. And the front wings here have now been manufactured as well. So, as I said, for now, though, we'll be kind of just speeding things along. Did have a failed underfloor there, which is going to be a little bit harder to replace. I believe we don't have actually suspensions to swap out either, so yeah. We'll have to try and stay ahead on the parts here. It's going to be a little bit difficult to do so, but at the same time, it should be okay. We'll be focusing Bottas and trying to score as many points as possible. We'll see how that underfloor comes in just a few days. And, well, we do have, as I said, a couple of problems, mainly in the sense that we need more suspensions, we need more underfloors, we need a little bit of everything, really. So that's going to compromise how many points we can score, but at the same time, Bottas is going to be the priority. Chassis has been manufactured here. I believe we are actually kind of caught up, potentially, maybe, but at the same time, we are lacking a little bit, so it's still okay. Now, we did also complete the the suspension research here, the big one. This is the one with the CFD time. As you can see, this is a pretty massive jump all around. And we're just going to go ahead and start a new one. And if you remember, we aren't going to be able to put in any more CFD time here. This is still a sizable upgrade, don't get me wrong. So we're going to go ahead and just put in as many engineers as we have available. I don't think this will be enough where we can actually get it done in time, but we're going to gamble and try. And what I mean by getting it done in time is maybe just about. Yeah, because the front wing was 45 days, we could have 4 days. That's going to be perfectly timed, I think. Maybe, we'll see. But we'll do at least one more chassis research on this cycle as well. And it's looking good. So we'll speed along in now to Monaco. We'll get that final piece on. And we'll be going now for one driver in the top 10 for 5 races. This should help our economy greatly. One driver, top 10. Again, we're going to be putting all our hopes on Bottas. If he crashes, we're going to be very, very sad. But I still think that should be alright. Now, is it better to go with 2 drivers in the top 15? It is. So yeah, we're going to go with this. Both drivers into Q2. And that's going to make us a decent chunk of money. Let's just have a quick look at the car now with the final upgrade and see where we stand. I'll be giving you some updates throughout the season on how the car is performing. But generally, the idea now is that since the car has been set up, since you've seen kind of how it can perform, I'll be skipping a lot of the intermediate stuff in order to, you know, speed up the process here towards the end of the season. Again, want to kind of squeeze this together into one video, and then we'll start the, you know, the true Around the World Challenge next video out, probably. But again, this is development mainly. How you can also take this for any other team. Development like this works for any team really, and you can use that as a, you know, a template to develop your own team, if you will. Take ideas from here to put into your own team. It's up to you really what you want to, you know, implement, what you want to ignore, and what you want to, you know, take advantage of. So this is our current car. Valtteri Bottas is where we're going to be ending up. As you can see, this is our current car compared to the rest of the grid. So currently we have basically, again, need to remember 2 cars per team. So 11th here is in reality 6th. This is in reality, I believe, wait, 1, 3. Yeah, this is 5th. my head needs a little bit of a reset. So this is 5th. Is it? Yeah, and this is 4th. There we go. So as you can see, we're 5th in low speed, we're 4th in medium speed, we are 6th in DRS effectiveness. We're lacking a little bit in high speed, but again, dirty air tolerance, the brake cooling, engine cooling, all of these are important, but they're not massively important for our car. We can be happy with what we have. Particularly in rain, we're going to have struggling following other cars, but we can still make do. We're lacking a lot of top speed compared to the grid average here. As you can see, we're basically 2.5 kph down, but top speed isn't a huge factor in overtaking. It's how close you are to the car in front, and cornering is the best way of getting close to a car in front of you. Dirty air tolerance has something to say too, but dirty air tolerance is basically just how much does the car in front of you slow you down with dirty air. So we focus cornering, it's been paying off so far. We have a very good car right now. We're going to get outdeveloped over the course of the season, we're going to get less and less points, but with the full research focus that we're doing now, it should still give us a very, very competitive car come the start of next season. So let's jump into Monaco. Let's see where we perform here, and after Monaco, I'm probably going to go ahead and, as I said, jump a few races forward. I'll still be showing all of the researches though. Monaco quali for Bottas here with all the parts upgraded. As you can see, fairly reliable 109.9. Gives him 6 on the board here. Show just generally couldn't get a good time in Q2 here. Popped in out, he's at 10.6. Which honestly would have been good enough to put him into, as you can see, Q3 here. Just couldn't get that done. So he's still acceptable, but of course with the blocking that is, you know, a problem, particularly around Monaco. It did get kind of screwed, but it did make it in Q2, which gives us money, so we should be happy with that. But we'll see how Monaco goes here. So Monaco was where we're going to have things be a bit interesting. It's actually become a little bit more interesting now because Hulkenberg, Stroll, and Leclerc has all crashed here. And, well, we might actually crash into it too because we're about to come up on it. It's just a couple of corners away. But it is a safety car now. I think this is going to be a red flag. I don't think we can sneak past here to be sure. but it's still kind of weird. But as you can see, we're 15 seconds behind basically what was Stroll and Leclerc running together. They're just a couple of seconds behind Sainz. But at this stage, they too had gone on to soft tires. We were on mediums. We were gaining basically quite significantly, over a second a lap. So we were in a good prime position where we might have actually been able to fight for a podium even without this crash. Now with Show here, he is a little bit of, in a worse position. He's running with Russell down there. But he's going to have to pit here. There's just no way around it. We don't really have any, acceptable tires for this occasion. Even if we go in the mediums and stretch them, it's going to be a bit of a rough one. But I think that's what we're going to have to do for him. He actually has somewhat an option here to make this work, and that is to be, just go on the mediums and stretch them. We don't really have any other options for him available to us, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to get him in, get him onto, a more careful strategy, medium strategy there. For Bottas, however, I think the best player is actually to pit because of the gap to Tsunoda. Tsunoda is in 7th. He is doing his own little thing that's actually really good. But he's in 7th down here. He's been holding up this train very, very well for us for a long time. And the best play here, I think, is going to be to do another 2 pit stops, which sounds silly and might actually be incredibly silly, but it could work out. And it could just about, as you can see here, work out in our advantage, and that's going to be the play. I think, because we have no choice but to pit here with the gap that we have. We don't have any other tires available to us to pit to. So we're just going to have to do 2 soft sets here and try and make something out of this, even though we have a huge difference here to all the other cars. And we have actually stopped, so I'm assuming this is going to be a red flag straight up. Yes, it is.
Red flag.
That does put us up to 4th, though, with Tsunoda right behind. Okay, so they overtook a back marker, touched each other, and then pandemonium ensued. But again, that does kind of screw over our strategy. It's a shame that we don't have a, different set for Bottas here. Mediums can make it to the end, but won't really be, worthy or will really not last long enough. And with that, we might actually just do the same here for Show. Honestly, we can't do the same for Show. We're going to have to keep him onto that medium strategy. Did I put him on the medium? I hope I did.
It's time to pick up where we left off as the race restarts.
So some medium runners, a soft runner, which is, I believe, us.
And it's lights out, and away
And
we go.
as you can see, most people going into hards, mediums, softs are us only. We're the only one going to be very aggressive here. So that's going to be a little bit interesting. Now, for Shoei, it's going to just have to try and hold on to his position. So at least for the first lap here, we're going to be aggressive, then we'll shoot him down. And I think that is going to have to be the play to see what we can do. For Bottas, I'm actually going to go the high-risk route here. And this is something I didn't actually talk about, but I always put my drivers to low and rarely defend. Mainly because it, prevents any undue damage from silliness, so to speak. And that is the main goal behind that. Now for Bottas, we could potentially also just have him sit behind here and, secure a 4th place. But at the same time, I feel like this is one of those times when we have to take a little bit of risk to challenge the cars in front for a potential race win here. It's still over 30 laps to go. We're basically, just a little bit over half race distance. So this could very well play out, to our advantage. And that's going to be the plan here, to try and take advantage and make something happen. So Bottas now has Perez and Haas in front of him. Should be able to potentially make a lunge within a few laps time. And if we get by Bottas, then as you can see, the gap is opening up currently and doing the 2-stopper here. As long as Tsunoda is able to hold on to that 5th place, is not going to be a problem at all, I think. The main thing now is that we're going to have to potentially recharge a little bit, but Bottas got Perez before that, so it's not actually a concern. Got him into the...
Decide to give it a go.
He got it into the hairpin. What a man. But yeah, now the plan is very simple. Try and pull away from Tsunoda, and then we'll have another fight with Perez once we do that pit stop around lap 60, 62, maybe 63. We'll see how long we can stretch these tires for. And of course, if we overtake Sainz, if we overtake Verstappen too, that's going to make our life even easier. So we will try our best here, and we'll see where we're at once we get to the closing out of this race. We've gotten to the point now where we actually do need to pit. The tire degradation was slightly higher than expected because of our aggressiveness, but thanks to Tsunoda mainly holding up the rest of the pack here, as you can see on this stint alone, we've opened up a gap to Hamilton here of about 20 seconds. It's still going to be really close, as you can see. It's close to 20 seconds. We are going to be pitting this lap, and we are going to be getting onto this fresh set of softs, which is going to make us pretty quick. But it's also going to be reliant on us coming out ahead of Hamilton. We're going to have to pray here for no pit stop errors. We avoided them, but Hamilton, I think, is actually not going to be quick enough to sneak out in front of us, which is amazing. This does give us a huge chance here, a great opportunity to fight Perez. And as soon as we get these tires up to temperature for the next 5 or so laps, to make sure that we have something to fight with, well, maybe 3-4 laps, to make sure that we have something to fight with towards the end, against Perez and potentially Sainz, if we're lucky, we are going to go ahead and run them on aggressive. Now, Show here is kind of just sitting around doing his own little thing, but there isn't really much we can do with his tires, because if we push them, he is going to fall off a cliff. Honestly, having him stay where he is and score in 8th place is still great for us. It's still very, very acceptable. It is something that we will, you know, be happy with. So we'll just leave him be for now. If he gets overtaken by Magnussen, we will potentially, you know, step in and help him. But for now, it's perfectly fine to just leave him to his own devices. And it's kind of the same here for Bottas. He's gaining 1.5 seconds on Perez a lap, 1.3 on, Sainz. He is basically 11 seconds behind Sainz at this point. So as long as Perez isn't too much of a roadblock, we can just switch him over to full attack, probably within a lap or two. And then he can just straight up chase down these cars. I don't think he's going to catch Verstappen, as I said. It's just a little bit too much of an ask. But catching Perez and catching Sainz is definitely on the table here. And this is kind of why we're doing so well. It's because we lean heavily into very aggressive strategies. They do allow you to make inroads, but it also requires, free air for the most part. The turning is a key to this strategy too, because, well, the good cornering ability cuts down lap times. Dirty air isn't really an issue for us too much of the time, mainly on wet tracks. And by doing very aggressive strategies, you will be quicker than the AI, even in worse machinery, and that is the key factor. As you can see, for Show here, he cannot do anything else than just fall backwards at this stage, and just kind of pray that Magnussen doesn't have what it takes to overtake him on the straight, which is a bit unfortunate, but it's also the reality of the situation. Now for Bottas, on the other hand, it is quite a different scenario, because he has that aggression. He has, in this case, a better tire. And as Verstappen's tires gets lower here, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but at the same time, if we're gaining a second a lap, 10 laps to go, it's not going to be enough. But Perez and Sainz definitely on the menu. And I think at the next time we get to the main straight, we'll be close enough to Perez to launch an attack. And just to make sure that happens, we're going to deploy ERS here to use that little bit of extra energy to get a little bit closer, because right now he's actually pulling away. He's running away from us. He's actually catching up to Sainz at this stage, and having two of them run together with the DRS is going to be a little bit more painful. But they have actually achieved that, and as you can see, last lap Perez was actually quicker than us, so he is for sure at this stage pushing. I'm wondering if he's actually planning to pit, because as you can see, he is pushing quite aggressively. You can actually see it on the temperature going up too. So Perez might actually pit this lap. That's the thing. Although he has a lot of tire left, so we'll see. Because right now both of them are actually pulling away from us. They are actually responding to what we're doing. So that's actually great. But I think Perez kind of decided to cool his tires now, because we are basically all the way up to him again. And I think this is it for him. There we go. So the AI will do things like that. As you can see, Paris in this case, we'll have a look. He did push, then he decided to cool down again. The tires here, you can actually see the tires going up, going down. Usually that's a sign of him planning to pit. He also has a bad ERS, so he's a little bit slower due to that. But they will try and defend their positions if given the opportunity like that. So it's really, really nice to see that they will take, you know, steps to protect themselves. Unfortunately, Tsunoda is still in 6th. I thought he was falling further down. I didn't see him immediately. We could also try and consider turning Show up a little bit here now, but honestly, again, I'm very happy with where he is. We can be happy with him just staying where he is, but we are going to need to try and get Bottas past Sainz here. Hopefully now on this straight, and we do. And if it wasn't for Verstappen, basically Verstappen is, you know, an anomaly at this stage. If it wasn't for him, if he had crashed out instead of Stroll, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, and Alonso, they did give us... Alonso crashed out earlier. Stroll and Leclerc gave us this opportunity, basically. They paid for it with their lives. But if Verstappen has been out of this, we'd generally be fighting for a win. We're gaining 1.5 seconds a lap. Could we have fought for a win? Yeah, probably. Would we have been able to win? That's a different scenario. Now, what I am going to do here, I think, is give Show one opportunity to attack. We have 2 laps to go. We're going to deploy the ERS for these 2 laps, pull away from Magnus, and see if we can get close to Gasly and Tsunoda, and maybe launch a bit of an attack. Now, it says last lap, but that's Verstappen's last lap. Show is still on his second last lap, so he does have more than 1 lap to do this on. And we are getting closer now to the back of the car in front. Gonna go attack. And the main concern here is just going to be the fact that Gasly will have DRS as well. It's going to make it a tad more difficult to get the overtake done. But this is the only chance that we'll have to, you know, try and make something happen with Gasly. And he actually might have pulled it off, surprisingly enough. And he did. I should have slowed that down, though, to be fair.
You're doing very well at the moment.
He did indeed try his best. But yeah, Bottas, podium. Second place, we'll take that. Show.
Okay, Valtteri, that's the checkered flag.
Ends up probably 7th here, unless he pulls off something magical, although I should probably put him 2 on high overtake aggression. That's my fault. Forgot about that. But I don't think we have, you know, the space here now to pull off and move on to Tsunoda as well. And honestly, for AlphaTauri, I'm happy with seeing them up in 6th, so I have no plans of ruining this too much. But yeah, Show 7th, Bottas 2nd, and that is just how much you can actually get out of an Alfa Romeo. With a little bit of lucky with the crashes, of course, but at the same time, we beat Sainz, we beat Paris, we beat Hamilton here. We had a little bit of help with Tsunoda, but we beat a lot of these cars on pace because we are running more aggressive strategies than they are, and that is the thing. Aggressive strategies gets really, really good results in this game. And that is why a lot of people are... There's actually been a couple of comments lately saying that I must be editing my save games. But you can actually do exactly what I've done here up to Monaco, and you can kind of replicate the success. Just run aggressive strategies, use the strategy planner, and you'll be seeing what you can pull off here. But with that in mind, as I said, this is the last race where I'll be showing anything unless we score podiums. I'll be summarizing races basically at halfway point to the season, 3/4. Other than that now, till the end of the season, we'll be focusing on just development of next year's car. The research for the chassis is complete, and as I said, we do want to try and get another chassis research underway before we lose that extra slot. We're going to lose it in about 25 days, I think, so a day after we get the suspension done there. So with that in mind, we do want to get one more just straight up a chassis research done. We're going to try and get it until, you know, 24 days? Because again, we want to try and get as many research days as we can into this. So I believe it was that we had a full 45 days from the front wing. We put that down to 41. So it should be, as long as it's 24 days, we should be good, but I might be mistaken. But we have already set up the rear wing and the front wing to, you know, match when that ends. So it's not actually a big deal. But honestly, the best thing to do here would be to match every research to the end day. So that is kind of what we're trying to do here. The next sidepod project is going to be a long one. Same here for the rear wing. Honestly, same for all of these. But we'll try and get the chassis project done in 24 days. That should be, I think, safe. So we'll try that. I could be 1 day off too, which is a potentially scary part here where I'm throwing away a little bit. So just to be on the safe side, what we're actually going to do here is put one more researcher on the suspension. Gonna, you know, speed it up by 1 day. And we're going to put one more researcher on the chassis. Going to speed that up with a couple of days. But this ensures that we get these things done within, you know, the time scale. And that is the main goal, to get as many research projects done before the end of the season as we can. Now, driver development, Bottas gets 2 points at cornering, Show gets at cornering, smoothness and adaptability. Smoothness is, I'd argue, if not, let's face it, you need pace stats, but you also need smoothness to make, you know, more use of those pace stats. So smoothness is very important to me, personally, on our driver. The chassis research we completed, as you can see, it gives us around a little bit of a percentage point in these three, a little bit more here, but we'll take that. And the car development report, this one is wrong, but it kind of hints towards where our car is. We'll once again be setting up a pit stop time, you know, schedule to try and get that pit stop times down. But as you can see here, we've actually worked a little bit too hard, and we are going to be weary come Spain. And Spain is going to be a little bit of an interesting one in terms of strategy too, because it's one of those tracks where actually running conserve on your tires can benefit you. So we'll be going for fewer pit stops there. But yeah, the calendar is not 100% reliable for this. So this month, the goal is going to be very simply to kind of take a break, if you will, and you know, try and get everything back up and running before the next month. So it's a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. We'll just have to deal with it. And if we go with this, sorry, we need to remove that one as well. If we go with this, we'll end up at 0%. We'll be able to get 7% for this one, but we do need to do a little bit of training too. So we'll put in a couple of days here. Maybe start giving them the weekends off, maybe. That might be the trick. But this seems to be acceptable. This is what we'll just go for. It's going to be, again, a very minor increase in the pit stop times here. We're still going to have to put a little bit of work into the mistake chance here because, well, it's not great. So we do have a little bit of work cut out for us in the pit department as well, but it's fine for now. In terms of the cars, I believe we do have some failed side pods. We'll just replace what we can. Of course, because of the fact that we're lacking, you know, manufacturing capabilities, we aren't necessarily able to use, you know, the best pieces for both our cars, but we'll do our best here to catch up and manufacture as time goes on. Race prep Spanish Grand Prix, again, we're going to be going for one drive in top 10. We're not going to bother with fastest lap. It's just a bit of a risk to me. But as I said, going to be focusing more on the research aspect going forward. Sidepod research has reached its completion, and at the current stage here, getting a little bit of up 1%, 1.4% across the board. A little bit more in the cooling department, which is of course nice, but about 1.4% across the board. And what we can do here, of course, is just start another project immediately, and we're going to go ahead and do this one just as it is with one engineer, because we will very shortly here be losing that extra slot bonus that we're currently, you know, taking advantage of. We have some inspection failed here, mainly just parts failing, no crashes. We've unfortunately had an issue in qualifying that is quite severe. As you can see here, car 2 is missing 3 parts: chassis, front wing and suspension, damaged engine and gearbox. And this is straight up from Show causing a red flag. If we compare him to, say, Bottas' car, which basically has had the same type of wear, you can see that the damage here is pretty severe. And not only that, but we do have a bit of an issue here with potential parts. We'll have to see. I think we are kind of followed him apart, but as you can see, we're now out of front wings, which is a big concern. We have an extra suspension, luckily, so we don't have to emergency manufacture. But as one might imagine here, this is going to be very, very painful. Now, Show, because of his incident where he crashed out here, is going to be starting from the back anyways. So what we're actually going to be doing here is we're going to be taking that ERS penalty early, because he's going to have to eat that penalty anyways. He is going to most likely going to have to eat a penalty for his engine here at some point too, but we're going to have to just do it like that to kind of compensate for that. It was a red flag. It ended qualifying, so I didn't even get to see what exactly he pulled off here. but he did get eliminated. Bottas luckily saved. They hadn't actually set a proper fast lap, which is why he's 13th. But at the same time, it's a bit unfortunate. As you can see, tires are barely used. You can't even see the top of them being skimmed because it was rain at the start, dry towards the end. Why we did the first fast lap on Inters, and luckily enough, not enough cars crossed the line to push Bottas out of Q1. Luckily here, so it's a bit unfortunate, of course, but we'll just have to deal with it. Welcome everyone to the buggiest race in history, where we have no data for the weather. So what's actually happened here is that we are in Canada. Things have gone a little bit wonky, as you can see here. We've had 3 red flags. And as a result, we've actually run out of weather. Straight up. That is at least what's happening here. As you can see, there's no real updates on the weathers. The weather at all. And the track now is stuck at 72 millimeters of water. But I assume that this isn't. Well, I assume this is actual.
Copy.
72 millimeters of water, but as you can see, because of where it is, it's better to run the soft tires, which has put us into a very interesting position where, well, hilariously enough, Bottas is currently running for another podium, but it's a very interesting thing here that we've actually run out of weather, as I said. We'll see how this goes though with the race, but I thought this was just a funny little side bit to put in here, but yeah, hilarious. Now, this weather bug is actually incredibly interesting because, as you can see, we are running way slower than everyone else, and I find that interesting because the other cars are just sliding past us. So what I'm thinking is actually happening here is straight up that again, we are running full attack. I don't know if they're doing the same. We can actually check that. But everyone is kind of sliding ahead of us now, and if we have a look at the tires here, they're not running attack. Their tires are not hot at all. They're actually underheated. So it makes no sense as to why they are this quick. But the way that I imagine this bug actually working right now is that I'm experiencing 72 millimeters of water, but the AI isn't. That's the only way I can imagine that this is currently playing out. But this is an interesting bug that I've never seen before. So yeah, that's a bit of an interesting one. Gasly out, so yeah. Hamilton and Russell here are going to be able to score points, which is kind of bad for a fight for 4th.
Yes, copy.
But at the same time, this is
Try to keep temperature on the front
an
axle.
incredibly weird race where I'm just going to go ahead and probably save it, so I can have a look at it. I'm actually really tempted to reload this right now and see how it looks. But for now, we're just going to run this to the end and see what we get shown.
Perez, though.
The madness continues with Perez and Aston here taking each other out. The game is really struggling at this point. Again, probably due to the fact that we have run out of weather, hilariously enough. It's a shame that it's just so few laps remaining, because I think if this had continued, we'd probably end up with every car out. And again, it's just a bit funny to me, but it's also a shame because this was the best opportunity that we would have had to score another podium, but we're just, you know, unmistakably slow here. Look at that. Albon here is just running quicker than us, and he took us there without any problems at all, and that is kind of what leaves me baffled. I can't really understand why we are as slow as we are. We're not really gaining under, you know, under DRS. Yeah, we're not gaining under that either, which leaves me even more baffled. But yeah, it's frustrating, of course, but nothing really can do if the game has decided to bug out like this. I will, however, have a look at the save file I made, and we'll have a look there, see if we can make anything different, because this was a hilarious little bug to have going. But yeah, the only way I can really explain this is if, as I said, the weather there, we kind of ran out with 3 red flags, and as a result, we ended up in a situation where the track was locked at 0.72, but the AI didn't feel it while we did. That is the only way I can explain what was going on there. Race last time in Canada is straight up just because we ran out of weather. basically we had too many time wasters, red flag, saw a safety car, things like that, which made us run out of weather, which is unfortunate because we could have had a better result there. The Merc scored better than anticipated, but that is just how things go sometimes. Now, before Austria here, we're going to have a bunch of researches complete, among them the rear wing here, which is going to give us a small boost. That's the underfloor manufactured. I was very confused why they didn't show me any numbers. But yeah, as you can see, a 3% increase in DRS delta, some airflow sensitivity, some drag reduction. Pretty good, honestly, and we're just gonna chuck in a new research immediately. There's no reason not to, and we'll be doing this for basically every research that we are currently doing. We'll be doing the same here for the front wing. We're gonna basically have 4 researches now complete before the start of the next race, and as I said, just do another front wing right away. We don't have CFD period yet. It's gonna start in 4 days, so just before next race. And as I said, we'll probably put that into maybe the side pods, maybe the front wing. The underfloor has already had one. The suspension has had one, so probably the side pods, or we do front wing, rear wing, and well, we kind of need to do side pods too because your side pods are the greatest source of engine cooling. So we do need to take that into consideration. A little bit of a more boost here for our chassis. We're of course going to start a new chassis project right away. And we should very soon now be losing that boost that we had from the research buff here. We're going to be losing 2 slots, but as long as we have something going in them, they should remain. So we're going to go ahead here and start the final research project that we'll be doing under this boost, which is this suspension research right here. And that should be good. Now, in terms of what we gained so far from our research, it's still pretty good. We're gaining about 1.5 to 2%, sometimes 3%, depending on how low we are across the board. And if we are able to do 3-4 researches in each part, it's going to massively benefit us for next year because the AI will usually only do 2 researches per part. So with that in mind, we do have a pretty sizable advantage over the AI that we can take in use to, you know, our advantage. New ATR period starts, and I should probably also just check and get this set up. Same here. But generally, we aren't actually struggling at this current point in time on parts, I say. We're kind of running out, to be fair. But we should be good for the time being, although, yeah, it's a bit worrisome at the moment, but it should be okay. So those are the researches we have completed. We're going to have 1 more before Austria, the underfloor research. And while it might be tempting for me to put in a new ATR into the underfloor, because the underfloor is just that good, that wouldn't be worth it. As you can see here, we're about 60 points behind Mercedes. We're happy with going 5th though. And as I said, because of what happened last time in Canada with the bug there where we ran out of weather, Mercedes scored 2nd and 5th. So they scored a lot more points than they should have. And we lost a lot of points because we fell down from virtually 3rd or even 2nd to 10th and 8th. So we got hit pretty hard there by that bug, but we'll just have to live with it. It is how games are. We have a sprint weekend, we have some races coming up, and we can hopefully make a bit of a comeback then. Now, contract ending for a few of our staff here, that's fine. Same here for show, honestly. The Science Center improvement has now run its course, as you can see. We apparently lost more effectiveness. We're down from 100 to 50 now, but basically just goes from 150 to back to 50. We'll lose some project capacity. But as you can see, yeah, all 6 projects are still running. Although we did kind of mistime this underfloor. We should have sped it up by a couple of days so that we could have gotten a full cycle in. You know, another full cycle in. But it is how it is sometimes. Can't always min-max to perfection. And we'll still take that. It's not actually a bad thing. So, research benefit here is about 10% across the board. This makes this underfloor pretty good. But because we lost a slot, we can't restart it. We also had a design center failure, which is actually gonna affect our manufacturing, which might be actually way worse. But we'll just approve the pause because we don't actually have a choice. It's a forced event. And with that, we'll be focusing on the next couple of races. We have about 3 weeks before we get the next research, and then that is probably when we'll be seeing where we're at. Month has ticked over to July. Show here has gotten 2 points of reactions, but has had no improvements. Board has high confidence, everything is looking good. Car development report here is again not accurate because, well, it's not a race weekend. We are kind of struggling with the effects of Show's crash in Canada, but we'll deal with that as we go. And honestly, we'll once again put up a training schedule here that is basically just resting at this point. As you can see, the weariness here is higher than anticipated by quite a lot, I dare say. So it's a bit confusing. So for now, we'll just do it like this, I think. I don't think we have much of a choice, really. Put in like 3 sessions this month. But we might have to just go for a full rest month here. But as you can see, it's expected that we're around 29% next month. We'll see how that goes. But clearly there's something up with the pit crew there, where they do some shenanigans, honestly. But as said, we're going to be continuing here now for Great Britain. For the last couple of races here, we finished 5th, last race out. So we're currently doing well, 69 points behind, 69 points firmly in 5th. We're behind Merck, but they've had a couple of lucky breaks, particularly in Canada and also now in Austria, where the rain secured them a 6th and 7th place while we got 5th. We have a vote here for a regulation change that would actually be pretty nice for us, and that is very simple. That 5th and below get more safety time, 5th and above get less. For both wind tunnel and safety, and we're going to be voting for this. It's going to make it a lot easier for us in, the challenge that we're doing, where we'll be jumping to, after winning, hopefully next season, we'll be jumping to whoever finished last. And if we can increase our safety time, that's going to make, the jump up to get back up to first a little bit easier. So, of course, we are voting for that proposed regulation. Now, since that regulation is going to be coming in pretty soon, we'll have just stay as we are. We'll be attending the F1 schools, see if we can find some new talents, probably manufacture complete. We are kind of behind on the pass right now, in particularly the underfloor. We are basically caught up with most others, and financially we are still looking good. The cost cap bug here, the way that you calculate your remaining is just your projected minus your remainings. In this case, we have about 60 million left by Silverstone. That's not bad. That is a decent amount of money that we still have to spend. So we're looking good in that regard. I might go ahead and upgrade the factory a tad early here, because we might need to. As you can see, the side pods too are in low stock, but honestly, it's not a big concern. Did I emergency manufacture something here? But yeah, let's just have a quick look at if I did. No, I made them normally, so we'll be good there. We'll just go ahead and make another side pod, and that should bring us, once all these manufacturing projects are done, back up to, the standard for everything, except for front wings, which we have 6. Regulation vote change, let's see what happened here. It got voted through, I believe. I only see 4 votes against, so this is going to help us in the coming seasons. We'll take that for sure. Very happy with this, for once they actually voted like I wanted to. And we'll be jumping into Hungary here. Hopefully, this will not be hopefully this will not be another rainy affair, because we've had an impressive amount of rainy races. I believe this is the 5th one this season, and calendar-wise, we'd be at around, what is this, race 12? Or 13? It's race 12, yeah. So almost half the races this season has had, water on race day, and it has kind of put us into a bad position. But we'll see what we can do here. We ended up 5th here in the race. As you can see, we ended up, a little bit high in the sprint, but we finished 6th in the sprint. We got promoted due to penalties to 4th for the race start, and then we finished 5th here, meaning that the Mercs here still, well over the course of this weekend, extend their gap on us a little bit. We I haven't been as lucky for this one as in the other series, but that's fine too. It's been more focus on next year for this one. We also have a bit of an error, which really slowed us down. We end up stuck behind one of the Mercs, so it is what it is. We also did fail to reach Q2 with both drivers, because once again, Show got shafted by a red flag in qualifying, and it's interesting that it's happened twice this season, so we really haven't been lucky. As you can see, that research has also completed. We have our mid-season review. We're currently 5th. We're on target. We have scored a podium. Honestly, I think we're still looking good for our first season. We had a little bit of a problem here with engineer and driver tension, and they lost a bit of affinity. For the chassis here, as you can see, we gain a little bit more of a boost, but I think what we are going to do here now is start that side pod upgrade where we are going to be investing our CFD wind tunnel hours, get that engine cooling up, get some airflow going. It's going to be a sizable upgrade for next year. It's not going to be huge, but it's still going to help with everything, and that is the main goal here behind this this research. So we're going to be doing that. Now, with that said, however, I am going to, I think, have to cut this first season in two. I know I said at the start of the video that we're going to make try and fit everything into one, but I've had a look at the footage up to this point, and honestly, there's so much to go through and so much that I'm probably going to be cutting out, that even if I cut out as much as I want, as I wish I could, it's probably still going to be a fairly lengthy first video. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it into two parts. Hope you still have enjoyed this first part of the Around the World Challenge. We mainly focus on, you know, the car development facet, and we'll be doing the same for that next part. We'll be finishing off Season 2. Hope you still enjoyed. There were some questions if I wanted to maybe bridge the gap, or rather take my other Alfa Romeo series and make that into an Around the World Challenge. Potentially we could have done that, but I feel like that had its own merits. But if the wishes are there, I might just go ahead and remake this video in the theme of first season development to win second season, basically make it into a guide, and then branch off that Alfa Romeo series into an Around the World thing. But we'll see. Let me know your feedback. Hope you still enjoyed this video, although again it's mainly been focused on development of the car, how things have been going, and so far halfway through the season we're still very far behind Mercedes, but they've had the weather on their side, they've had some luck going their way, we've had a lot of bad luck coming our way, so I'm still happy with where we are. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, hope to see you next time, bye bye.